You've probably heard about long-term care, but do you really know what it means, what it entails? What's the point? Do I really need it? There's so many questions, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It's really an important topic. So if you want to know more about long-term care planning, stay tuned. Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Scan FYI. My guest today is Tom Duffy of Jersey Shore Financial Advisors. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Andrea. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. We're coming to the end of the summer. Oh, it's
I
hard for
know.
hard for me to say that, but yeah, we are. And I feel like, we're coming into fall when well, of course, at Scan in fall means new semester, everyone gears up. And just like the start of the school year when you're kids, I feel like a lot of us, that's when we start getting down to business. And our topic today really, let me just say that there will be more information on this because Tom is going to be doing a workshop on long-term care. And we'll put all that information out there. That's the end of September. But this is an important topic because I feel like it's one that is very misunderstood. We hear the term, we don't know what it means. And, we always say it's of no value if you don't know what it is.
I agree. I agree. And even thinking about what it could mean is just so scary to most of us. And for so many people that are going through some type of long-term care experience, whether they're caring for a loved one, they're helping out with a neighbor, they're receiving care. None of this is a comfortable conversation. None of it. And,
No,
and I'll
no.
start off by saying I am living this, some of it. My wife is going through this with her mom. So, we are hip, sometimes shoulder deep in caregiving decisions, the financial decisions, all that stuff. And so I just hopefully we can dispel some of the untruths here and hope spur some folks on to think about what are some of the planning steps that they can take now before anything is really needed, because well, if you need it, it's too late in a lot of cases.
Well, before we went on the air, we said something about, it's like you wouldn't buy a fire extinguisher after your house burned down.
Right, right,
And
right.
so to get us started on the conversation, why don't you just explain what is it? What is long-term care? What do we really mean by that?
So the way I think about long-term care is and planning for long-term care, not so much the care itself, but when we think about long-term care planning, it's really having a plan where we're going to keep our loved ones safe and secure, protect their physical being, protect their stuff, their assets, their house, their safety. This could be physical care where we need almost medical care, but it's more about keeping someone safe.
Yeah,
Maybe it's standby care where mom's able to do most of the things on her own. She needs a little bit of help with whether it's cooking or dressing or keeping track of the millions of appointments that need to be done. Upkeep of the home is a big
yeah,
thing. We are an independent folk, and I can still mow the lawn. That doesn't mean I should. So,
yeah.
those are the kinds of things to think about, and to really to recognize that it's okay. At some point, you're not going to do those things, whether by choice or you're forced into not being able to make your own dinner. Maybe you're going to need some help in the house getting, from the couch to the bathroom to bed to the doctor to the all that stuff. It's just part of life, is that we're going to get to a point where we're probably going to need some amount of help.
And let me just say that long-term care planning, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be aging in place in your own home.
Well, that's the
right?
preferred place to do it. You're
That's
absolutely right. I'm glad you said
absolutely
that.
right.
'Cause I mean,
Right.
that's what we're doing with my mother-in-law. I mean, she's in her townhouse that she's been in for the last 34 years. And we're doing everything we can to keep her there. Whether or not that's, who knows what's going to be in the future. I mean, you could see over my shoulder here, my crystal ball is here, and maybe a little bit later on, I'll tell you what it says on the little sticky note. But it's difficult for many of us to think too far into the future. But it's, we're like I said, we're thinking about how do we stay safe? How do we provide care, whether that's a family member that's providing care, whether that's, we bringing in folks to help in, how do we pick a caregiver, how much care, and then of course the worst part of it is how do we pay for this? And
That's
and that's
right.
that's the part where most people, they just at that point they throw up their hands and say, I'm not going to do anything. I can't afford to do this, which means I can't afford to think about it. It hurts my brain too much to think about it. So yeah, let's just change the channel. Let's watch something else.
Oh, and there you have it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's
So
what happens.
it does feel, just from, working at Scan and, speaking to so many people on FYI, that people wind up being plunged into this situation. There was no planning, or sometimes there was the most minimal planning. And we always talk about on FYI, you have to plan, you have to be prepared, you have to know what your resources are, what's available. Because to make a decision in a time of crisis is always a bad thing. So really what we're talking about today is the idea of preparing in advance for what may be inevitable in many families.
Right. That's exactly right. That's so many people. They just think it's so far off in the distance. It's such a remote, it's so far away. Well, let's think about that for a second. Let's just do a little bit of simple math, right? So right now, a male that hits age 65, the average life expectancy is 20 years. And for a female, it's about 23 years. So that's from 65 to 85 or 87, right? So that's a long period of time. The thing is that from my experience anyway, once we hit that certain age, and it's right around 78, 79, that's when things seem to get a little bit more real, let's say, that we're less able to do the things. Getting up to that point, most of us are very vigorous. I think about our healthcare system is so much better than it ever was. Our food supply, our environment, our access to medical care, so much better. We live such a higher quality of life until we get to that point. But then the physical plant just starts to break down. And we're not even talking about cognitive problems. We're just talking about, the ability that we're able to get up out of the chair, the ability that we're able to use our hands to feed ourselves, to button our shirts, that kind of stuff. And like I said, it's just a part of life where our body is going to break down at some point. So, but when I say how far off is it, it's only 20 years. That's not a long time. And so, to say, oh, I'll wait until I think I need it. Well, by then it's too late because it all happens very quickly in a compressed period of time. And
Right.
so that's one of the things that's important. So we kind of lure ourselves into, or lull ourselves into a false sense of security that, I don't want to think about it, or, oh, well, I have Medicare, and I have a Medicare supplement policy or a Medicare Advantage problem. That'll take care of it. Yeah, no, no, it won't. They don't. Medicare does not pay for any long-term care services. Medicare pays for your doctors, and it'll pay for the hospital if you go to the hospital. If you go to the hospital with some type of acute medical condition, and then they cure that or they get you stable, you don't stay in the hospital. They
Right.
send you
They send you
somewhere else.
home or where
Well,
or somewhere.
right,
Yeah.
right. Now Medicare doesn't pay for those other places unless it's medically necessary, meaning you have some type of medical procedure that's ongoing. You have a feeding tube or some kind of, something is had. So there is some medical. So Medicare is out. Medicaid, while it does pay for long-term care in the form of custodial care, meaning you have to go to a nursing home, that's after you're destitute, meaning all your money is gone. And so, that's again, many of us, we worked our rear ends off all our lives,
Right.
not just to hand the money over to a nursing home. So, the planning has to happen well before the need ever arises. So many of us say, oh, I'm not going to live that long. I beg to differ. You are. If you do die early, that would be the anomaly, right? Living long is the norm today. I mean, think about who's the oldest person you know. I ask everybody, think about who are the oldest people that you know, and how vigorous are they leading up to, into the 80s, like I said. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from folks that say, "Oh, my family will take care of my daughter will take care of me." That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I don't
Yeah.
doubt that. I don't doubt that for a minute. Get your daughter on the phone. I want to ask her a couple of questions about how is she going to quit her life to take care of you. I don't doubt that she will. She will. She absolutely will. But how will that affect your grandchildren, the spouse, their marriage, their financial security, all that kind of stuff? And most of us don't think, that second step. Oh, my daughter will take care of me. Yeah, no, in my house, my wife and I, we have just implemented our long-term care, what part of our solution, which is a long-term care insurance policy. Now we're just 59 years old, and we're doing that today. So, and the reason I share that is I want folks to know I'm walking the walk. I'm not just talking the talk.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
taking the steps today because there is no way that we expect our daughter to quit her life to take care of us. That's not what we raised her for, right? She's successful in her career. I'm not going to take that away from her because I'm not going to plan. A lot of folks, they don't want to plan because they say it's too expensive. Well, it's expensive whether you plan or not. The thing about the planning is we take off a lot of the stress on the family members that are kind of picking up the pieces, providing, catch as you catch can, care. That's
Yeah.
terrible. Folks will say, I'll just pay for it out of pocket. I got plenty of money. Well, that's certainly a solution, is to self-fund whatever the long-term care plan is. But, when we're talking about, especially facility care, when we're talking it's 10, 12, 15,000 a month, money melts under that environment. Plus, if you have a spouse, the spouse is still home. We still have to maintain,
Right.
their financial security. So, that's a big deal. That's why so many people, they just don't want to do it. And think about the emotional cost to the family members, right? You've got, there may be adult children. There's some that live close by. There might be some that are a little bit further away. Who does what? Our situation is, my wife's brother lives in Florida. He's supportive,
Hmm.
no hands on. What are we going to do? That kind of stuff. And so in many families, that's an issue. I've heard more than a few horror stories of folks that, the closest adult child doesn't help at all. It's the one that's got to drive an hour and 40
Right.
minutes. That's the
Right.
one doing all the work. Think about, how that impacts family dynamics that probably maybe weren't so great to begin with. And then we add this on there. You've got folks that are, in the what we call the sandwich generation. We've got children still at home, and we've got an elder that we're trying to take care of, and we're stuck in the middle. That's a huge issue. And who loses? I say everybody does in that case, because we're not doing the things we should do. I've often said, Andrea, I do a lot of financial literacy and try to teach folks to do financial literacy, to teach people how money works, essentially. And just think about the folks that are trying to manage care while they're at work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lost productivity. They've got to take days off. We're in a situation, certainly I have the flexibility. I can help out my wife, her position, and her boss has already gone through this with his mom. So he, very, very, very empathetic to what we're going through. And she has the flexibility that she can, today, as a matter of fact, she's, taking her mother to a doctor at 1 o'clock. So she's going to work up until 1 o'clock. Fortunately, she could work from home, take mom to the doctor. So, that, but think about folks that don't have that ability.
A
right? They've
lot of
got to
people
miss work.
don't have that kind of flexibility in their job at all. But,
Mhm.
can I say something about, your adult children, you think my kids will help me. A lot of times there's people who have no children.
Yep.
There's people who their children maybe live across the country. Maybe they don't even live in this country. So I just feel like it's a terrible, misguided expectation to think that your adult children could really just drop everything
Sure.
and completely change their lives to serve, their parents. And I think it's a pretty harsh sentence for a parents to impose on a kid.
I
I,
agree.
I, I
That's
really
exactly, that's what I
do.
was trying to say. That's why we've tried to do that planning, so that, at least we'll have the resources available to pay for care rather than expecting, and we only have one child. I mean, so, that, like you said, the folks that are solo agers, that raises a whole other, problem that, they don't have anybody. So then where is it? Where does the care come from? So I got a couple keys maybe we'll go over. So,
Yeah,
when
please.
we think of long-term care, it's more than just, somebody sitting alone in a nursing home. We're trying to avoid that. That's the last place really that we want to go is to a nursing home. Like you said, we want to stay at home. That's the most comfortable.
Yes.
Typically, in many cases it's the most cost effective. Unless somebody needs round the clock care, then it might be prohibitive. But when we think about long-term care, we're thinking about services that are designed to meet a person's health and our personal care needs. We want them to live as independently and as safely as they can. If they can no longer perform some of those activities of daily living, then that's when they need the help. And then when we say activities of daily living, the ADLs, right? We're thinking bathing, dressing, eating, transferring, toileting, and incontinence. Those are the big five or six
Yeah.
activities that, once we can't do those, that's, we obviously there's none of those that we can do without. And so, those are the things that we're thinking about it. Um, there was some numbers. I have an older number here. This is from 2021. Someone that turns age 65 has almost a 70% chance of needing some amount of long-term care support. 70% chance. If I told you, Andrew, that there's a 70% chance that it's going to snow today in August, right? We think twice about it, right? But so a 70% chance, that's something. And like we said, so some of the places we can get care at home, there's assisted living facilities, there's independent living, there's a lot of great stuff that's happening in community care, community-based care, where you've got adult daycare
Mhm.
situations, you've got kind of I don't know a lot about this, but care homes where somebody is creating basically a homestead to take care of elders that don't have anybody else. It's not necessarily a professional facility or a corporate style facility. It's more, it's a home. It's, three or four folks. It's kind of
Yeah.
a group home,
A
if you
group
will.
home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's going to be more and more important that we figure out how to do that going forward. And then, the traditional full-blown nursing home. And, like I said, that's typically the last place that we want to, end up, because it's typically the most expensive. Um, you know, uh, Caregiving may be challenging in those settings because the workforce for that level of care just isn't there. We're really struggling to fill those types of jobs. In a lot of cases, we just don't pay enough for those folks to do it. You think about, how, we're always worried about minimum wage and
Hmm.
nobody wants to work. Well, it's not, I firmly believe everybody wants to work. They just don't want to work cheap. And
Yeah.
that's what we have to really think about going forward. So that's if we were to define, what that is. As I said before, how do we pay for that? Medicare, Medicaid, that's not a plan. It's absolutely not a plan. Medicare was never designed to pay for custodial care.
Right.
Medicare is there to pay for acute or chronic medical, right? So cognitive impairment is not a medical disability. It sounds like it is, right? But our inability to live by ourselves because we have some cognitive impairment there's no medical necessity there. So just keeping someone safe, keeping them from wandering off, from leaving the stove on, from think all the terrible things. Medicare doesn't pay for that. And as I said, Medicaid is it's an I try to explain it to folks that Medicaid is essentially welfare for medical services. It's an unfunded program, meaning that so we fund Medicare, right? So out of our paychecks, money goes into Medicare. Probably not
Mhm.
enough. That's a whole other conversation. But at least we're putting money into Medicare. And Medicaid, it's unfunded. It's a partnership between the federal government and the state governments, and they figure out how much money they are willing to commit out of the general revenues of the state. And so it is a very difficult to qualify for Medicaid. As I said before, you really, in most states, you can't have more than $2,000 in a bank account in any one month. Otherwise, you're ineligible. Folks think, oh, I'm just going to I'll give all my money to my daughter, and I'll sell my house and give her the money and go live with her, and I'll qualify for Medicaid. Well,
Doesn't exactly work that way.
not exactly. There is
No.
this thing called the 5-year look back period, and so when you give up your assets, when you gift them that way, the state of New Jersey anyway, they're going to do a very deep forensic dive into your
Hmm.
finances. And
Hmm.
they're going to find that, they're going to say, well, we could tell up until 2 years ago, you paid property taxes. What were you paying property taxes on? Oh, a house. Well, where is that house? Well, I
Where
sold
is
that
the
house.
house?
Where'd the money go? I gave it to my daughter. Okay, well, that's a gift and it's within 5 years. And so, we're going to do some math here, and now you're ineligible for care. Oh, you've got Social Security coming in. Maybe you've got a pension coming in. You have an IRA that you inherited from a spouse or somebody like that. Those are assets. The income is certainly usable, and whatever assets that we have, also, that goes to offset, or make us ineligible. As I said, Medicaid is essentially a welfare program. So, we've got to make sure that there's a way to plan for and plan on qualifying for Medicaid. You can do that. I don't know that it's necessarily the care, right? The purpose is not to end up in a Medicaid facility. As I
Hmm.
said before, nursing home, probably the last place we want to go. Certainly a Medicaid facility is even worse. We certainly don't want to
Yeah.
go there. So, those are some of the things that folks that, that's their plan. Terrible plan, terrible plan.
That is a terrible plan. I think if you're listening, you're getting the idea that there's a lot going on here. There's a lot that you have to think about, talk about with your family. There's a lot of resources that are available. You need to figure this all out. And the good news is, though, that Tom is doing a workshop at SCAN on September 30th. You want to just give a little bit away, and that'll be a great opportunity for people to
Sure. That's Monday, September 30th. It's at 12:30 in the SCAN facilities there at Monmouth Mall. We're going to talk about these types of things, the keys to thinking about what planning steps can we do. We'll probably go. I was going to mention long-term care insurance, which is a whole problem area right now. There's not many options available for long-term care. Most of them are very expensive because if you think like an insurance company, right, the one things insurance companies hate to do is pay out.
pay
And
out.
so,
They
as I
do.
said before, if I make it to age 65, there's probably at least a 70% chance that I'm going to need some care, which means my insurance policy is probably going to pay out. They hate that, right? Try filing a claim on your car insurance, right? They hate paying out. So, so it's an expensive thing because the insurance company looks at it, oh, it's like a guaranteed payout for them. So they have to really do a much better job, which I think they have done probably the last 5 or 6 years in pricing their policies. Because there's some horror stories about long-term care insurance where the premiums doubled, and that was just the insurance companies did it. They had no data, and so they just priced their policies incorrectly. I think they do a much better job of that today.
Hmm.
Nothing's going to be perfect, but it's a lot better off. So we'll certainly go into deep dive a little bit more. Now, I'm not an insurance guy. I'm not an insurance agent. So it's not an insurance sales presentation. It's just here's what's out there. Here's how you get it. Here's what you can expect when you get that. You know, we'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about how we, you know, try to structure your assets, right? So if gifting, as we just mentioned, if that's something that somebody wants to do, there are ways to do that to try to protect the assets, or preserve the assets anyway, so that they can go to the next generation. You know, I try to, in my work with my clients, we try to think about, okay, um, how much do we want to give to our kids, and then kind of work backwards rather than just saying, oh, they got to get all of it. Well, do they? You know, if the kids are already successful and they've built
Yeah.
their own assets, then, you know, then
Keep it
try
for
to,
yourself.
yeah, trying to skimp on your own retirement and or care if you need it, that doesn't make any sense to me. So you know, we try to think along those lines, to try to do some planning.
All right, well, everything you need to know about getting it right for planning your long-term care, all your questions answered. That's September 30th at SCAN. You can register now at our website, www.scanNJ.org. Oh God, I forgot our website. Yeah, but I think this is worthy. There's a lot of confusion, and this is a great opportunity to talk to someone who can give you the answers. So, Tom Duffy, Jersey Shore Financial Advisors, thank you for being my guest today.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. All right, remember out there, if it's important to you, it's important to us. I'm Andrea Tarr. We'll see you next time on Scan FYI. Bye, everyone, and bye, Tom.
Bye. Thank you.